Hello, I'm Peter,
And I'm Harry.
and this is Man Up,
Man down.
the podcast where we talk about growing up in the 21st century as a young person
Our experiences with mental health.
and the things that we have to go through as young people in this modern day and age.
We'll be discussing several topics over the course of, I think, we're going to
About 8 weeks.
about 8 weeks we're looking at. And the idea is that we draw our own conclusions, I guess, at the end of each topic that we discuss, kind of figure out for ourselves. We're learning, aren't we, whilst we're doing this?
Episode 6, Harry.
I can't believe how fast this year's gone, honestly.
It is going, but given that we started in October, we recorded the first one in October, so over 2 months ago now. Pretty incredible, and this week is Christmas. Obviously this will be going out hopefully on Christmas Eve, but it's actually the 21st today that we're recording this.
I'm excited for Christmas this year. I don't usually have the same enthusiasm, inevitably that I would as a child, but
Yeah, I guess it becomes less, in some ways, less special the older you get, because you're less, it's less about Christmas and less about the presents and stuff, and more about kind of seeing family and doing things with friends and
well, that's what's more important than the gifts, I think. And I think you only learn that when you're older, don't you?
yeah.
When you're a kid, it's just you only care about the Xbox you're getting or this, that, the other. But as you get older, you appreciate more.
But to be fair, I think part of that is that like when you're a kid, you can't, most of the year you can't afford the stuff that you want for Christmas, so that it's more special. Whereas when you're an adult, you can pretty much buy anything you want any time of the year.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's not as, if I want to get like the latest Doctor Who thing, I can go out and just get it. And not have to wait till Christmas.
I love how you told your viewers in the last episode that was going to be the end of the Doctor Who references.
Did I?
We are 1 minute in.
Well, yeah, there we are. What have you been up to this week? Anything exciting?
So, I feel like I say gym every week, but again,
Well, you didn't go today, did you?
I didn't. That's because I went last night, in fairness.
Yeah.
So, obviously, I do have a new job, which is good.
Nice. So do I, but we'll reveal more in the new year, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So
when both of them have been confirmed, but we both got new jobs this week. Kind of, I guess, coincidentally.
Yeah,
It wasn't. They're not really connected. To the
no,
two
I
jobs.
won't say they're connected, but again, it's something for us to celebrate.
Yeah.
So other than that, really, not much. What about yourself?
What have I been up to? Well, we won the. I don't know if we mentioned it on the last one. I don't think we did actually. But we won the quiz that we do every week. The pub
We
quiz.
did. Oh, right. So for a bit of context, guys, we've been doing this pub quiz for well over best part
2 or 3 years.
2 or 3 years, yeah.
Yeah.
And the aim was always, of course, we enjoyed it, but there was a competitive spirit within us. We wanted to win, and finally, with receiving 24 additional bonus
26,
points.
I think it was.
26, correct.
Because
Correction.
it got to a point last year where, I think it was last year, it might have been this year, where they felt so sorry for us that they implemented this new thing across all the teams where if you turn up on consecutive weeks, you get an extra 2 points every week. So we obviously did 13 weeks in a row and then got 26 bonus points and somehow managed to win. But if we didn't have the bonus points, we would have come, I think, last or second to last. So
See, it sounds really bad, 26 additional bonus points, but we actually, regardless, got a really good score anyway. It wouldn't have been anything close to winning.
no.
But that's, I guess, a credit to the rest of the teams.
Yeah.
Because they are.
So
clever.
the big dilemma now is: do we keep going back to the quiz or not? Because if we go back now, we've obviously not got the bonus points because we've used them up. So we'd be probably bottom position. So if I'm going from top to bottom over 2 weeks, it's gonna be quite embarrassing. So do we go back? I mean, it's tonight, so I guess we've got to decide in the next few hours.
Yeah. I think we should. I think we should.
Good fun,
continue.
and it's a good.
Yeah, exactly.
So, someone said it last week. It's a good opportunity for us all to meet up once a week because it's the one time we pretty much are all free. Well, you're always free because you haven't got a job. Oh, you have got a job now. I can't do that joke anymore.
Exactly. See, I took it personally from the last few podcasts, Pete.
Yeah.
I took it personally. Right.
Tough love,
so
tough love.
this week's episode is about relationships, and that's all relationships. So
Yeah, with friends,
Yeah.
family, pets,
loved ones, whoever it may
yeah,
be,
significant others.
Yeah.
I just want to say before we start this podcast as well that there's a great podcast that I listen to called "How Do You Survive Your 20s" by Joe and Jonah, and now I kind of know Joe through a podcast event that we both volunteered at some years ago. but I do regularly listen to their podcast, and it's a great podcast. I definitely check it out, and it in a large part inspired this podcast. So I guess this week's episode about relationships is in some ways inspired by their podcast. I wouldn't want anybody to think we're copying, and I certainly hope they don't think we're copying with the themes. But I think it's definitely a very interesting subject to talk about, very interesting topic. So yeah, if Joe or Jonah are listening, I hope that it's all good, done in good spirits, and we would never want to copy your great success with your podcast, because it genuinely is a great listen. But without further ado, so we get on to the topic and delve into relationships.
Absolutely.
So I thought we could do it. So since this is Christmas week and it's Christmas Eve that you'll be listening to this, I thought it'd be a great opportunity to, have a kind of theme along this podcast with Christmas. Make it a little bit Christmassy. So I thought we could do, like a Christmas Carol with the Ghost of Christmas Past and the Ghost of Christmas Present and the Ghost of Christmas Future. I thought we could kind of anchor our topic today around those themes in a way. So we can start by talking about relationships that we've had in the past, relationships that we're having currently, and then relationships we hope to have in the future. So yeah, is that a good idea?
Absolutely, I like that.
Cool. So we'll start with the past, I guess. So take your mind back. I don't know how far back you want to go, but what relationships stick out to you? It could be family, friends.
I always remember my first friend at nursery, and he was pretty much the only person that I would speak to. The only person that it was a case of, if he wasn't there, I didn't want to go nursery, pretty much. I just remember just laughing.
It's like recently,
all the time.
It was years ago.
Oh yeah, well, yeah, thank you. So yeah, my only friend, he's in the car with me now. I always remember. Yeah, and he was my earliest friend, and it was great. And obviously, I recall when I joined primary school, and I think reception year 1. Yeah, obviously he didn't go to that school, so initially it was difficult. But again, that's where I gained a lot of the friends that I actually still have today, which is crazy when you think about it.
Yeah.
Since we're talking 17, 18 years ago.
Primary school, yeah.
Yeah. Crazy. What about yourself?
So I guess we kind of touched on it briefly in the education podcast, but I went to 2 different schools in 2 completely different areas. So the friends that I had when I was kind of 4, 5, 6, I kind of left them behind when I was about 7. So I kind of had to make new friends when I got to the new school that I moved to. But when I was young, I had kind of one close friend, and I had a few friends. I think I was pretty popular in primary school generally, because when I started primary school, Doctor Who had just come back to TV. There's another Doctor Who mentioned for us. Doctor Who had just come back to TV, and I was kind of the Doctor Who guy in the class, and I used to teach people about Doctor Who, and I went from a very early age, from being 4 or 5 years old. So that was quite nice.
Yeah.
Family, we've always been a very strong bond. I think family's very important. And then relationships. I mean, I had, for want of a better word, a girlfriend in primary school. But
You did not have a girlfriend in primary school. You can't say that in primary school.
Well, we're talking about the past, aren't we? Relationships of the past.
Yeah, but you can't say that was a relationship. You were what, 9?
Yeah, but I think that's what 8, 9-year-old Pete thought relationships to be, in a way. Do you know what I mean? We look back now and may go, that's not a relationship, but I agree with you. But
if you're looking back at it from your perspective as an 8-year-old, you probably thought that you were married with kids with her.
Probably,
yeah. But
that's what I could say. Some of the 3 areas: family, friends, and kind of romantic relationships. They're the 3.
You can say girlfriends, mate.
Yeah.
No, 100%. I think, obviously, family, I think, is always going to be the most integral.
Yeah, because
relationship that you have. Yeah.
Family is something that is kind of the constant. Friends come and go.
But the thing is, you've got to say this though. For us, yes, but not necessarily for everyone.
True.
Because a lot of times their family, for whatever circumstances,
True.
Be it whatever it is, they perhaps leave, and that's one thing I wanted to say, is that we're so privileged and we should be so grateful every day that we have our family together, we have our siblings together. I know obviously it must be, I don't know, but I can only assume it must be horrific growing up, especially without like a father figure or your mother. I always remember a lad that I grew up with, and he lived with his auntie because his mother died, and that was, like, we really looked after him, and we loved his auntie as well, because we had a really good connection with them, because I was a good friend of his, and I knew how difficult it must have been for him growing up. But yeah, like you say, I think family is always the most integral. When I think of relationships, I think you say, like, family, a romantic partner, and then maybe friends.
Yeah.
Because I agree, like, friends come and go. The best friends, though, the real friends, I believe, should stick by you. That's because the main thing I look for in a friend really is loyalty, if I'm honest.
I think you're right, but and maybe I'm too young to kind of judge this. Maybe maybe I'm kind of biased in the age that I am. But I don't know. I don't know if any friends that we get during teenage years are constant.
No, absolutely not. But what I'm saying is no. But that's what I'm saying is you'll know the real friends as being the ones that you can see in your future.
Yeah. Did you find it easy to make friends when you were in primary school or from a young age, or did you find that pretty difficult to make new friends?
I think early in primary school, naturally I found it difficult. I was quite very much introverted. I had really, really poor concentration in the classroom and stuff.
So do you find it easy to make friends, or did you find it easy to make friends as a kid?
I think in primary school, naturally, I always found it a little bit difficult. I was quite introverted. I had like a small circle of friends, but they were good friends, definitely. One of which, like you say, still my friend today. So
listens to the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Listen, a big fan of the podcast. Because for me, I was it easy making friends in school? I don't know necessarily. I think I was kind of somebody who got on with everybody, but getting really, really close to people was.
I think I was likable, but I don't think I was necessarily sociable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah, because I never really got invited to. I don't know about you. I never really got invited to. From what I remember, anyway, that many birthday parties. The odd one, but not many. And I don't think I ever got invited to like a sleepover, for example.
Yeah, no, I was quite lucky. I did in the later years. I think I did like year 4, 5, 6. I'd say. I
had people around for sleepovers, but I don't think I ever went to anybody else's house.
I remember birthdays quite distinctly as being a time that I really, really did value friends. When your friends turn up to your birthday party and that, it's a great feeling. You don't care about I didn't care about the gifts. Genuinely, I didn't. Like, it was. It wouldn't be great going Laser Quest on my own, would it? Like, it was good. I think. Would you say that you value your friends now more so than in childhood? Because I don't. I think I value friends the same.
I think I actually value it less. If you want my honest answer, yeah, I think I value it less. I think when you're a kid, or when I was a kid, I think I was so carefree with it, and it sounds bad, but almost less cynical. I think when I was a kid, I think having friends was like the most amazing thing ever, and like my friends could do no wrongs.
But your friends is like so significant, I think, for your happiness growing up.
Yeah, I think you're right.
If you're lonely as an adult, that as an adult is really challenging.
Yeah, because it's more difficult to get friends.
But like what I'm saying is, imagine that during the time that you're developing, you're going through hormones, it's at an early age, that must be like really, really difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, you are right. But I don't know. I guess I have a big lack of trust with a lot of my friends now, in a way that I didn't when I was a kid. I think when you're a kid, you look past a lot of things because you are a kid.
Well, I guess stakes are different when you get older. You've got things to consider, like. We talk about relationships and money, and
seems to me that you compete more with friends the older you get in some respects. Like when you're a kid, you don't compete over anything, but when you're older, you compete over girls, jobs.
I'm going to be honest with you, I can't necessarily relate to that, because if anything, like I and I'm sure you are too, to be honest. But like you're happy for your friend's success.
Yeah.
I don't envy any of the positions. Like I didn't get good grades in college. Most of my friends did. I didn't go to uni. Most of my friends did. I haven't had a job for a long time. Most of my friends have. I don't compare myself like that. I'm not like...
Yeah.
I don't think I'm...
No, but I guess there's more scope to compare than when you're a kid.
Well, yeah.
'Cause when you're a kid, there's nothing to really compete about, is there, apart from who's going to win Monopoly?
Yeah, or the football or whatever. Yeah, I know what you mean. I get you. I think that, if I'm honest though, like, I think all through life, it doesn't matter the age, friendships and having people around you and people that care is so significant for mental health and for, for general happiness, I think. Because
What are the most, what are the kind of 2 or 3 things that you think are the most important aspects of a friend? Or any sort of relationship, whether it be family or
a friend or I guess a girlfriend. I mentioned before, loyalty would be
loyalty. Yeah.
And I guess it's quite brief, but respect. Just having respect for one another, respect for their circumstances, whatever it is they're going through. Being there, being present, essentially.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes a good friend.
Through thick and thin.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I've been. I mean, I've been to yourself and to many others a terrible friend, and I've done some terrible actions in the past. Things I remorse to this day, but I always think in the end, how lucky am I that you all stood by me through the worst of times, because I know I've not been easy at all. So I'm forever grateful that that I have friends with such a deeper understanding of who I am, and that aren't just willing to think, oh, these are not cases.
Why do you think that is, though? I mean, I can't really necessarily answer, but do you think that's because
I think
a lot of the friends that you've been friends with for a long time, or do you think it's because they've got genuine loyalty, or what is the main reason that people have stuck with you? Not that they shouldn't. I'm not saying they shouldn't, but I can't answer.
Well, I don't think necessarily, if I'm honest, that they always should have stuck by me. And like I say, I have lost some people on a permanent basis in the past as a consequence of my actions, and I can't. Looking back at the way I was, I can't blame them whatsoever.
What would you say to those people you've left permanently? That left you permanently, what would you say to them?
What I would say to them is that it takes time, it takes support, but people can change.
And do you think you have changed?
Yeah, significantly, I do.
Bit intense, isn't it?
No, listen, I don't want to make it all about me. We're talking about relationships in general, but if you want the truth, honestly, I think I am. Obviously, no one's perfect, but I'm nowhere near it, nowhere close. I've got a long way to go, put it that way, but I think I'm way better now than I was, say, a year, 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's good that you've got that kind of reflection.
And I think unanimously, might be up for discussion a bit, but I think in the end, unanimously, most in the group would agree.
Yeah, I think there's definitely been change. I mean, you're not necessarily bad. I wouldn't say you're a bad person. You're not Hitler, but I think that.
Well, thanks, mate, for comparing me to someone that carried out mass genocide. But
no, what I'm trying to say is you're not a bad person. I think you had certain obstacles that you had to get through, or hurdles that not everybody has had.
Well, I'm not going to use it as any excuse, but obviously we know from previous podcasts I've not got the best mental health at times. But you've all stuck by me, and that's why I would do the same for you. That's what I want you to know. I think that's another thing that makes a good friend. I know I said 2 examples, but like,
unless a girl's involved, and then you'll snake us.
Don't be silly. Depends who it is. No, I'm kidding. But no, I was gonna say, I think another thing that makes a good friend is kind of
communication.
Yeah, communicate. I was gonna say, like, I don't know how to put it, like mirroring. So essentially, doing something back for someone that would do something for you.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I think definitely an effort's a big part of. I use the word effort, but like, I think whether it be a friend or a romantic partner, or even I suppose family to some respects, they've got to put the same amount of effort in that you're putting in. Like, we had a conversation in the car before about a friend of ours who I won't name because I don't think it's fair for me to name them, but
no, yeah, we'll avoid names. Yeah,
I don't think they put in much effort in terms of maintaining a friendship, and I think that they I think it's got to be a two-way thing. I think you've got to, if you're reaching out to people and saying, hey, how you doing, mate, do you want to meet up? They've also got to be putting that effort in. Same as a relationship, it's got to be very much a two-way thing. If you suggest something for a date, they should suggest something the next time, or they should message you, say how you doing, do you want to do something?
I think in an ideal world, yes, but with many friends that I've got as well, I don't think necessarily things would always be equal in a sense, but I don't have an issue with that. I'm very fortunate for just for having people around. Honestly, just people tolerating my company is enough. But no, I get what you're saying. I think definitely that's what makes the best of a partner or the best of a friend is someone that would truly
That puts effort
do
in.
anything for you. Yeah, that you know that you wouldn't do for them.
Because if it
Or that
isn't,
you would
if
do,
it's,
rather.
it's like a seesaw. If it isn't if it isn't equal on both sides, it becomes,
Yeah, unstable.
Unsteady, yeah, unstable.
Absolutely. No, I agree. I absolutely agree.
And if someone's putting in more effort, again, whether it be a relationship or a friendship or whatever, if someone's putting in more effort
But that's where I think communication, as you've emphasised, is so key.
and honesty,
Yeah. Being able to communicate is a big thing, though. Being able to speak to someone one-to-one or in a group, or I always prefer one-to-one. I'd always advise that. But, yeah, being able to say, look, I think, if I'm honest, I'm not happy at the minute. I think that, perhaps I'm doing a little bit more, or I'd expect this more from you, or you weren't present for me at this time I needed you. Being able to, speak about it.
but it's also again, one of the things that the guys on How Do You Survive Your 20s were talking about is apologising and genuinely meaning it. Because I think a lot of the time for our generation, and again, I guess it's a lot of generations, is, people apologise just to end an argument or just to appease someone. But actually saying sorry and you mean it takes a lot, or it can take a lot of energy, and it can take a lot of, looking at yourself in the mirror and going, yeah, I wasn't wrong with that, or I wasn't wrong with this.
It's a big thing, isn't it? It's the responsible thing, isn't it? Is to apologise for something you've done wrong, and it took me a long time and a lot of maturing up to recognise this. When I did, I think I started then slowly gaining back some respect from my peers. And also, like you say, it's not just words though, it's about the actions that come with them. So taking initiative, I think, is a big thing.
Yeah.
Relationships, had any pets growing up?
I never personally had any. My brother had some goldfish. I think we actually spoke about this on the Grief podcast, didn't we? He had some goldfish, and now we have some birds.
It astonishes me the relationships that people have with their pets, because they're almost like you say. I think I've said before, people, especially with dogs and cats, they have such a bond that it's almost like they're a family member.
Yeah.
To them,
it was like you said about your sister with
her hamster. Yeah.
It
was her first bond outside of I guess her. I mean, I was gonna say her brother. She probably had a better relationship with the hamster than she does with me. But yeah, no, it's interesting because I know a lot of people do grow up with dogs. So you always hear dog owners say, don't you? Is get your son, get your daughter a dog. It'll teach responsibility. You'll love the dog, blah blah. And
dog isn't just for Christmas.
Yeah, it's for life. I used to always be skeptical about kind of the influence that a pet could have on someone, but really it's shown to be quite. I think a lot of pet owners are the people that want children when they're older because they've got that kind of parental. They've grown up with that kind of parental element to their life. Yeah.
I guess the other thing I would say about friendships, or relationships or anything really, is you've also got to be. I guess it's kind of what we spoke about a minute ago, but you've got to be willing to change your mindset. You can't always believe that you're right. Yeah, but you also can't always believe that you are in the right.
Yeah, patience is a big thing, definitely.
You've got to be welcome to change. You've got to be welcome to new things. You've got to be. Yeah.
I think that some people, and it's not really for me to comment, but I think you'd agree, some people are just quite adamant that their views are it, and they're not necessarily ever going to change their minds from that.
Yeah.
And that's where I think you have to draw your own conclusions and think, well, is this someone that I can view as a friend? If they'll never take my opinion into account, they'll never.
Yeah, there's got.
There has to be a line,
because nothing's black and white, is it? There's got to be
a grey area. Yeah.
A grey area where you come to some sort of agreement or some sort of terms.
No, I completely agree. Yeah, we talk about family. Obviously, I've got two. Well, now to think then.
How many brothers and sisters you got?
Two younger brothers and a younger sister. They are 18, 17, and my sister's 13. Like you say, it's weird how fast time goes. That's why.
Definitely, yeah.
I think you've really got to, because like you say, we're 22, getting on 23. We're not going to be at home forever for much longer.
Well, I've already moved out and moved back in.
Well, there you go. See, so you've already got experience of that. How did you find that being away from family? Because that's the first time I guess that you would have been away, besides like a school trip or something.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess at the start I was quite nervous, first night was quite weird. It was almost like being at a hotel for the first night because it was like I'm on my own in a room that I don't know, all this stuff. But then the more time goes on, I actually really enjoyed it, and I liked having a bit of my own space. And I think,
So you like the independence?
yeah, I think when I moved home, back home, I wasn't kind of as used to the hustle and bustle and stuff going on. So I think, especially for the first few weeks, it was quite kind of difficult to reacclimatise myself to it.
Yeah.
But again, one of the great things that Joe and Jonah have spoken about on the podcast this week is that they said about having a relationship with yourself, which I know sounds a bit of a weird thing to say, but you've got to be comfortable in your own
Skin,
presence and your own skin. So do you think that you are quite comfortable by yourself? If you were on your own for a week, for example, would you be all right?
I think I'm independent. I think I'm as competent independently as I would be with my peers, with friends. But comfortable. I'm trying to think.
Is that just because one of the things they were talking about was, it's not, you kind of not spending time with yourself if you're scrolling through Twitter or TikTok or whatever, or Instagram. That's not spending time by yourself. Spending time with yourself is doing something creative or doing something that
literally something where you're not you're not viewing other people, really.
Yeah, where you're not interacting with, they said that it's read a non-fiction book or I guess do a jigsaw or something like that would be a great example.
Well, admittedly, I think I could give myself more time to myself. I think that could help develop, I guess, a relationship with myself, or like a better relationship with myself. Because I think there's probably I'd assume, quite a direct correlation between your relationship with yourself and how you form relationships with others. Would that be fair to say?
I think so, yeah.
If you've got a good relationship with yourself, you're more likely going to have a good relationship with others.
Because it's also about, people always say, treat others how you want to be treated. Well, you've got to treat yourself with a certain amount of kindness.
Yeah,
I agree
with that.
You can't be too critical on yourself.
It's like anything. If you don't treat anything with respect, there's going to be consequences, aren't there? Like, if you don't treat your body with respect, you're going to, probably wind up getting ill or something.
Yeah. Physically, mentally, all these things. And
so in the same way,
self-esteem.
And I've done that, and I've lost, unfortunately, temporarily, but I've lost friends, haven't I, temporarily because of, like you say, my actions, because of the bad things I've done. So, I think, like you say, perhaps a lot of people take family, friends, partners especially, for granted.
Yeah.
We talk, about like in an intimate setting, like a lot of people do still cheat, don't they, and stuff, and obviously it's something we never agree on, but it happens all around us, and I can't help thinking, for these cheaters, how would they feel if it happened to them? Maybe it does, but then they'll carry on, and I can't necessarily understand that. I think if something bad like that happened to me, why would I then want to go and do that to somebody else? I don't know. Just
it's a difficult one. It's not something I necessarily have answers to, but so do you think that you are happy with yourself in terms of, talking about relationship with yourself? Do you think that you've got quite a good self-esteem and good self-confidence in terms of how you view yourself, or do you find yourself, for whatever reason, being having a lack of confidence?
I think generally speaking now I'm a lot more extroverted and sociable. But that doesn't necessarily mean you're happy with yourself, you know what I mean? I think you can be an extrovert without being confident, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of areas for growth, but I'd say generally speaking I'm content.
So we kind of covered, I guess, the past version of yourself and how you dealt with relationships in the past. How are you feeling now in 2022, or soon to be 2023? How do you feel? Friends, romantic relations, family. How do you feel that everything's kind of going on at the moment?
I think, like you said, there's a lot of area for growth still. I'm very fortunate for the friends I've got and the family I've got around me. But I think I ask myself oftentimes, am I as grateful as I convince myself I am? Really? Do I show it enough? And I think that there's more things I can do. It doesn't mean... One thing I think that, is not feasible is you can't buy friendship. You can't... It's not like, buy my sister a gift and she'll respect me more, or buy a friend a gift and he'll forgive me for a fallout. It doesn't work like that. It's actions speak a lot louder than,
Than words, yeah.
Than the action of buying stuff.
Yeah.
So... Yeah, I think that the great thing is end of the year now we can start kind of a blank slate in.
Does
in
seem like a lot.
2023.
I don't know if it's just this year or if it's every year. It feels like this, but it feels like this year a lot of things are coming to their natural end. It feels like next year's gonna kind of kick off a lot of new things.
I'd like to think so, but again, nothing's inevitable. Like we've obviously got to work really hard, and things will come, like you say, I'm sure. But
Yeah.
it's one of them where I think as we get older, naturally our relationships with people do change. They do change, I think. Sometimes.
So how have they changed between the past version of you and the version of you now?
Well, I think when I was younger, I think I had a lot more dependence on friendships than I'd say I would now.
Yeah, I'd agree actually.
Which is fair.
I think almost I'd say pre-lockdown, I'd say pre-COVID, I had much more of a reliance on meeting up with friends and stuff, whereas since COVID I feel like I'm a lot better at being by myself, whether it's going on a walk or going to the gym.
Yeah.
Or,
I think most people seem to enjoy their own company a lot more now.
Yeah.
As we're older. Which is a good thing because, like you say, a big part of adulthood is independence and that being... You've got to be comfortable on your own.
Do you think that people, generally, in the current landscape, are good at surviving on their own, or do you think a lot of people struggle with loneliness and?
Yeah, it's about balance, isn't it? Because you don't want to be like completely no friends, nobody around you, no family. I enjoy my own company, but I've got no one. Because eventually you'll stop enjoying your own company and you'll want people in your life. But on the flip side,
you've almost got to have your own survival instincts of being used to yourself. So
you can't be dependent for everything on
Yeah.
your friends growing up. You know, in terms of when it comes to your own finances, your own relationships, you've got to build your own work environment and everything.
Do you think that? And I'm not sure that it would necessarily be a good thing. I'm not necessarily sure why you'd need to do this, but say for example you had to go without all of your mates for a month. Do you think you could survive for a month on just yourself by just yourself?
You
Or?
say survive, yeah, absolutely. It's not dying of
Well, yeah.
starvation, but if you mean like, I think I get what you mean, like mentally.
Yeah.
Would I,
To be alright.
could I? Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think I could just about.
Nah, the thing is, I've got to be careful because I'm obviously extremely grateful for all the people I have around me. I've got great friends, but like you say, I think in the same way that I think most of us, I'd say, yeah, I could survive a month without everyone around. I think
you start to miss them very quickly though as well.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm not gonna. Yeah. Sorry, I'm saying I don't think it would be easy at all, and I'd miss them probably every day. But you raise a good point, and again, it emphasises you've got to be competent and comfortable in your own skin and build that relationship up with yourself, as you've said.
Yeah. Do you think that? I guess neither of us really know because we've not really been in a relationship in terms of a romantic setting. But do you think that it's easier to end a friendship or a relationship? Like, do you think it's easier for a friendship to come to its natural end or a relationship to come to its natural end?
Well, it's a really, really good question, that, and I think honestly it depends on the duration of time you've been friends with someone. If you've been friends with someone all your life, that would feel more like an intimate relationship.
Yeah, I remember being in high school and I had a very close friend who I would kind of consider my best friend, and we'd been friends kind of since year 3, kind of middle of primary school. And when we got to high school, we kind of still maintained quite a good friendship, but kind of by the end of the first year of high school, by the end of year 7, he'd kind of drifted away to another group of friends, and that was quite difficult to see. And I think maybe for a while I tried to cling on to it, but I think that's again, I was talking about it before on podcasts, but that's like the best thing I've learnt this year, I think, is that things do come to a natural end, and not everyone is meant to be in your life for the rest of your life. Like, some people are just there for, half a year or a month or a day, or, some people are there for a lot longer, great, but not everything is permanent, and you shouldn't necessarily cling on to everything as if it's a permanent thing. Does that make sense?
Very well raised, yeah. I can't remember who it was, but someone gave an analogy, which I thought was really good, about a rocket ship and how obviously once it exceeds, it gets into
I've seen
space.
that. Yeah, I have seen that.
Kind of like the
boosters.
They leave behind, whilst the rocket continues to accelerate into the atmosphere. And
it's basically saying that they support you while you need them, but then once you're flying, you don't need them
and
anyway.
They weren't necessarily meant to be there, throughout your whole journey.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, yeah. And I think you'll know, you know, in that metaphorical sense, you'll know who your friends are if they stay in the rocket, if you know what I mean.
And I think sometimes, like, I don't know if it's fair to say this, but I think sometimes if you cling on to a bad relationship or a bad friendship, it can do you a lot more harm than good. Because I think that, like, in the past, I've clung on to relationships or friendships, or whatever you want to call it, with people. And I think rather than me trying to make them better people, they've almost brought me down to be a worse person.
Well, you can't, and I think that's the worst thing is good people like yourself, nice people, will do everything that they can to kind of...
Well, that's it, we're not therapists, are we?
Well, no, exactly, but what I'm saying
not...
is we can only control... Actually, that's not necessarily true. I was going to say we can only control, like, our own perceptions and that, but it's not necessarily true. The way we act can influence other people for the worse or better.
Yeah, it's true.
But one thing I think that's a given is if you can see someone edging away and your relationship's becoming ever more distant with that person, that's then where you have to ask yourself, is this person actually worth anything to me?
Well, yeah, because it's like we said earlier, you've got to put as much effort in as they're putting in.
Say, for example, like you had a friend of 15 years, and there was a circumstance where his family had to move country or something, or he had to move country for a job, something that was like it's like an opportunity of a lifetime or something. But it meant that besides phone call, FaceTime, whatever, I wasn't going to see that person probably ever again. That would feel, I believe, as upsetting, and I know I can't comment because I've not had a relationship, but I believe to me that would feel as upsetting as a breakup. Yeah.
But I do think as well, like, you know, in terms of like what you just said there about if someone moved away for a job or whatever, like, the proof is really in the pudding with that, in terms of, like, I think they would either remain a friend or not by how much they contact you. And like, obviously you've got to contact them, you've got to put effort in as well, but like, if you never hear from them, you know, if 10 years go by and you never hear from them, then it kind of says it all. And I think sometimes, like, and again, this is one thing that I've been learning a lot more recently, is that sometimes not having closure is closure.
Yeah.
With friendships or relationships, whatever. And people make their intentions very clear. People might not always come out and say A, B, C, D, this is what I wanted to tell you, but people have their own ways of telling you if they're interested in you as a friend or more than a friend, and they will make it clear by the amount of effort they put in whether they want to hang around with you.
Do you know, I can appreciate as well that, especially for women, in this day and age, especially with social media and everything, it must be really, really difficult to reject and to know, like, because they don't necessarily always know how a guy's going to react. Now, good people like me and yourself and all our friends and that would, you know, react appropriately and not continue anything on or not be abusive. Or,
yeah.
But there are a lot of men out there, unfortunately, that and women to a point. Don't get me wrong, but predominantly I'd say it's more an issue with men.
Yeah.
Who can't necessarily take no for an answer, or
do you think in terms of, like, I guess this isn't really connected to rejection, this is more kind of like we said before about when a friendship ends or when a relationship ends, but do you think that the part of the sadness is remembering how good it was at the start?
If you've had a relationship with someone,
or a good friendship with someone, and it comes
yeah, absolutely, yeah, no, I think
part
the
of
worst
sadness
thing
is remembering how good it was when it started, or how, you know.
Well, it's like we talked about grief. It's like all the memories, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful. They all come out, I'd say, the most when like you say, when someone's gone.
Yeah.
Be it,
yeah, because your emotions are very high then, aren't they, I guess?
Yeah, but I think there you go. Like that's something that is, you know, almost an inevitability when someone's gone. That meant something to you. It's difficult. That's why they say always after a relationship breakup, whatever it is, to keep busy. Like we talked about in the grief thing, how do you deal with it? I kept busy, because if you don't, then your mind's just free to just ponder and think what could have been when it's not the case. Or
do you think, because, you know, if we're still in the section of present relationships and, you know, present relationships and present friendships, how do you think stuff like colleagues fit in to friendships? Because I feel like, on the whole, as much as I like most of the people that I work with in my current job, I feel like I feel like most of them aren't friendships, just because I feel like a friend you meet outside of work, whereas I kind of don't with most of my colleagues. So what do you think qualifies as turning it from a colleague to a friendship? And is it a difficult move? Is it a difficult, because whereas with this is one of the things that they were talking, Joe and Jonah were talking about was, if you ask somebody out on a date, in terms of a relationship, if you ask someone out on a date, it's quite easy because the intentions are known. Whereas asking somebody to be a friend is a lot more difficult because the rejection is almost harder.
But I think it's one of those things where, obviously, if you're asking someone out on a date, it's a little bit more direct, I'd say. Whereas with friendship and that, it kind of just blossoms quite naturally. Where I'd say, like, for example, if you've been working with a colleague for a while in a restaurant, for example, whatever it is, you both get on, you got good crack, you share the same humour, whatever it is, you share the same hobbies, interests, you find commonalities, and then something just comes up like, oh, there's a game next week, I got a free ticket, why don't you come, or whatever it is. That then can very quickly...
That turns into a friendship.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I would say that, like, in my current position, most of the people I work with, like I just said, they're not really friends because we don't meet up outside of work.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure how I would approach turning it into a friendship in some respects. Because there's no easy way in some regards to...
Well, like I say, I think it's like anything. It's the same way that you would if you asked a girl or whatever it is, or a guy or whoever it is. Like, if you... you propose the question essentially in your own way, and again, like you talked about being equal and having that shared response. So if you don't feel, and it's only for you to judge really, but if you don't feel that you've got that shared response, then again you ask yourself, well, is this someone then that's worth asking? Or
because a big part of a friendship or a relationship, I suppose, is having things in common, isn't it?
Commonalities develop relationships, develops mutuals, definitely, I think.
Yeah, because you got to be able to... I remember, we got a great friend called Dan. I remember one of the pieces of advice he once gave to me, I suppose when we were fairly young, we were probably in high school at the time, or maybe college, was he said that he wants to get into a relationship with someone. I don't know if he still feels like this, but this is what he felt like back then. He wants to get into a relationship with somebody that he can imagine going home to and having a conversation with.
Almost like a soulmate.
Because if you can't imagine going home to that person and talking to them about something, then it's not really a relationship, is it? I guess it's more a romantic relationship I'm talking about here.
It's interesting. I think the interesting thing is, yes, commonalities do develop strong relationships, but on the flip side, like you say, differences also unite people very well.
That's true, but do you think you can have a friendship or a relationship without having things in common? I think that's a very loaded question in a way, because
it's difficult. If you in an intimate setting, I think if you like someone enough, I don't think it would matter, because I think what you'd do is if you like someone enough, you'd take an interest to a point that perhaps you're not necessarily going to become a super fan. I think if a girl doesn't like football, I could take her to a football match. She'd probably hate it. But the thing is you make that effort the same way. If she loved ballet and something like that or whatever, something that I'm not into, I'd go to a show or whatever. I'd be there, show support. But
I wouldn't say that we have that much in common. Not that we're in a relationship, but in terms of friends.
Hey, speak for yourself. No, I'm kidding.
In terms of friends, I don't think that we've got that much in common.
But I'd say we have one of the strongest bonds. So does that kind of answer in a sense? Because I think that, again, you've said there, we don't have a lot in common necessarily. But having said that, I think you're talking in terms of hobbies and stuff. But I think chemistry's more than that.
Yeah.
Not just in a romantic setting. I think in a friendship setting, chemistry is more than just having them both liking basketball or whatever it is, or both liking chess, whatever it is. Do you know what I mean? I think if you vibe with a person, we've got very similar humour.
Yeah, and it's been able to be compassionate with someone and honest with someone. It's like I said before, honesty, loyalty. These things can all form a great friendship relationship. I think, like you say, someone's got to take an interest. Like, for example, you don't like Doctor Who, right? But there's been times when I've watched Doctor Who and you've been in the room and watched it.
Honestly, I wouldn't say I dislike it at all. The only thing is I wouldn't say I'm a fan. Does that make sense? Like, if we were going to go back, we are, aren't we? They're going to go watch an episode tonight, so there you go. Am I a super fan? No, but again, that's an example of, like I said before, in an intimate setting, you would make time for that person.
Yeah.
You do things,
Yeah, that's what I mean. So, and on the flip side to that, there's been times when, I guess more so in the past, because I don't mind them so much now, but when I was first starting going to clubs, I kind of didn't really want to do it, and I kind of only did it because, I felt like I should do it to be, your friend, and you make time for people, and you join in with what people like.
Well, not to interject, sorry, but I think it's important to emphasise, you shouldn't feel obligated to
No.
to do something for somebody else. What I mean is, if it's something that you are uncomfortable with, again, that's an instance where a friend or a girlfriend, boyfriend should understand that, and because like you say, the important thing is, I think though, is that it's just you have the respect for whoever likes whatever they like. It's not like no one's got any agenda on you from our friendship group over Doctor Who. No one treats you I'd like to think no one treats you any differently because of it, or this, that, the other. You might get the odd joke at your expense, or this, that, the other, but at the same time,
we all do about our own.
But we all do, yeah. But ultimately, like you say, we all enjoy and embrace different things. And that's something that's obviously very integral to you. You've grown up with it. You've got a very good relationship with people that... I was going to talk about this, about kind of celebrity status and that. People that you've not even met, you can have a really close relationship to in your mind, in your heart, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but would that not be the same with you and footballers, certain footballers?
Well, yeah, no, for example, not even just footballers, like actors and, some...
Jim Carrey?
Yeah, like musicians as well. People I've never met, but...
It's like role models, isn't it?
Well, we talked about role models, didn't we, and the influence they can have on lives, and I think we did address that in the media podcast, didn't we?
Yeah, media influencers,
yeah. So, again...
And also, just to interrupt you there a second, like, talking about Doctor Who for me, for example, like, that's something that's brought me very close to my dad, so me and my dad have that in common, and that relates back to family and how much, family are important to you. So, if you have anything else to say about kind of present relationships?
Well, I was going to say, I think, because we kind of covered very much so about, like, our childhood and friends we've had through childhood. The present, certainly, I think we've established the group of friends we have and how lucky we are.
Definitely, yeah.
So, on that basis, we talk about Christmas, the Ghost of the Future.
Ghost of Christmas Future. Woo!
So, no, it's
I'm a ghost.
It's not Halloween, mate. It's a bit late. So... I guess the first thing to say is, do you think that you'll have many of the friends you have currently in the future? We'll talk friends first. Cause
it's difficult for me to answer that, because the answer that I want to say, and the answer that everyone will probably want me to say if they're listening to it, is yes, I'll be friends with them forever and ever and ever. But realistically, I'm not so sure. And the reason for that is, I feel like, again, something that I've realised more recently is that not all friendships last forever. And it doesn't mean that necessarily I'm going to fall out with anybody. And it doesn't mean that anybody's going to fall out with me. But I think sometimes friendships come to their natural close. Like, there was a guy that I was really friendly with when I used to work at Quality Save, when I used to have my old job.
Yeah.
And like, we used to go to the gym pretty much every day. And like, I'd say we were pretty friendly. But like, as soon as I left that job, like, I've not seen him since. And we don't text, we don't message, I wouldn't say we're necessarily friends. Like, I'm sure if I saw him, I'd be friendly with him. So... I think all it would take, really, and it's I guess kind of bad to say this, but all it would take would be someone in our friendship group moving away, or me to leave a job that we're, like I'm leaving a job soon with someone I'm very friendly with, and will I still be friends with them? Yeah, I'm sure I will, but will that last long term? Will I still be friends with them in 10, 15 years? And I can say that about any friendship.
Yeah.
I don't know. You don't know what the future's going to hold. Because, for example, a year ago, we were really friendly with a guy called... I'll say his name because I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing what I'm going to say about him. A guy called Adam, right? And whilst I'd still be friendly with him if I saw him now, in passing, we're not as close as we were this time last year. I just don't think... We're not fallen out, nothing bad's happened, but I think sometimes friendships do come to their natural...
Well, our circumstances differ, don't they, though? Because, obviously, I was... I don't mind sharing because it's an open podcast, isn't it? Man up, man down. Like, I was not in a good place, but it's inexcusable for how I reacted with him. I did a lot of blame shifting for my own issues.
Yeah.
Projected it onto this person, and I really regret that. But I have to face up to that. I have to face the consequence that I've lost a good friend.
Yeah, but that's what I mean, is that there was a time when I thought we'd all be pretty close for 10, 15 years, but ultimately... Whilst we are, I still say we're friends, but we're not close friends, are we?
But I'm so grateful in the end, as much as I know I will have, like really, really peed him off and that. I am really grateful to him because I think him, along with everyone else and the fury that everyone had with me around that time, was ultimately the catalyst that made me wake up and smell the coffee and realise that. And that was that time that I felt probably the most loneliest, that I'd lost all those relationships.
Yeah.
That I'd lost the relationships with my family. I was drinking heavy. My friends certainly, because throughout this time, all in the build-up, like you say, I was having a lot of trouble with alcohol and the law and stuff, and it kind of all, do you know what I mean? Just spiraled.
Do you think you'll be friends with all your current friends for forever and ever and ever, or do you think they'll come to...
I don't, on the basis that I don't believe they will with me. I think eventually they'll be too far. I'm too far behind in my career, I think, compared to where everyone else is. So I think on that basis that...
It's quite a mature thing to say, actually.
Yeah, no, I think honestly, it's a shame, but we all progress in life at different stages. Sometimes it takes people longer. It's not necessarily a bad thing as long as you're trying, as long as you're...
I also don't know if, and I guess I'm, again, perhaps not old enough to really judge this, but I don't know if I'm the sort of friend who could maintain a long-distance friendship. Like, if somebody in our group moved abroad next week, and, they were gone for a year or two, would I reach out to them? I mean, I suppose things are a lot easier now with social media. I suppose things become a lot easier.
I agree. I think that what would make it difficult is not having that interaction, not having them present.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Just because it's not the same on FaceTime or anything.
Yeah, because you're also like, you're not having the banter, I guess. Like, there's been times when we have a friend in our group. Again, I won't name, but we've got a friend in our group who, kind of, for a good few months, didn't meet up with us when we went on nights out or when we went to pub quiz or whatever. And I think as a result, when he did then meet up with us some months later, he was like well out of the loop with like the in-jokes and stuff.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think, like you say, I mean, people... It takes, obviously, everyone different time. And the thing is, and this is what's so important, is we don't know necessarily always what's going on in people's personal lives. So the time that people do develop and gain friends or gain jobs and this, that, the other, or relationships with girls, guys, it will vary. But I think as long as we're two people and all our friends, and I'm sure many other people all respect that.
Yeah.
That it comes at different times for different people. Yeah.
So in terms of we've spoken about how you view your friendships in the future. How do you view your family in the future? Do you think you'll remain very close to your family?
Do you know? I mean, it's interesting because obviously we were in the shop before, and I saw my cousin, and it's like I want to get closer. I want to do more. I want to, because I don't think that I necessarily see my extended family enough.
Yeah.
I don't think I do. I don't think because again, I always go back to the first podcast about grieving, and again, I don't want to get morbid, but that podcast was great for me because it made me realise the value of time.
Yeah, because it's also like I remember seeing this thing. I can't remember where it was. It must have been online or somewhere, where it said like if you only see your family like twice a year, then you can only end up seeing your parents another 50 times or something crazy, which sounds like a lot, but really it's not a lot, is it?
It's a horrible...
Maybe more than 50, but not a load.
I think your relationship grows the strongest with your parents once you realise that they're at that old age.
I think there's also a sort of acceptance with your parents that... two things, I guess. One, they're not perfect. They're human beings like the rest of us. When you become to that realisation that they're not these perfect people that you always thought they were.
Yeah.
And the second thing is you become to a sort of acceptance of like when you become an adult, you understand what it's like to be an adult and you can relate to them a lot more. Do you feel?
I think so. I mean, obviously, personally, I've not always been respectful the way I wish I was. I mean, fortunately, like you say, I'm still only very young. They're not necessarily, so it's not. Yeah. So that's where again I have to take the initiative quickly because I don't want, I don't want any kind of bad relationship in the end. I think it's important that I remember everything that they've both done for me.
Do you think your relationship with them has grown or weakened let's say over the last year?
Do you know, it's quite... I guess it's quite sad to say, but I would say it's weakened quite a lot. But again, I've given them nothing but misery to reflect on, really. I've not been a good person in the house. I've not been great outside the house, obviously, with all the issues in the past. I know I've moved on from them, but there's still a long way to go, and I think they just want to see me happy. Obviously, they do. They're my parents.
I guess all parents do.
Yeah, exactly. They just want to see me happy and healthy. So when I do all these things and I go out and I waste money on silly people and like alcohol and whatever else it is, it's just not. It's not.
Do you think there's almost an extent that I'm not saying they have, but do you think that almost they've kind of, you think anyway, that they've given up on you?
No, I don't think that. I don't think my parents will ever give up on me. I don't think they ever will.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, but I think that they're conflicted because they don't know what to do, because I still go to them in the same way that I would, say, like maybe 6, 7, 8 years ago when I was still like, an early teenager, and that way where you kind of still have that kid mentality a bit, and you look to your
people are
parents
more
to kind
lenient
of,
on you, aren't they, I guess?
well, I think naturally, our response is always to look to our parents for answers because we've grown up for so long with that reliance. But that's that stage at like 16 to the age we are now, 22. That's that period of time in life where really you've got to start establishing stuff for yourself and learning on your own 2 feet, and growing on your own 2 feet.
Yeah, definitely. So do you think that, so I guess the one last aspect, because we're kind of getting up to the hour mark now, which is actually whizzed by normally. I mean, not saying they don't normally whiz by, but this one's really whizzed by. And I feel like there's still loads more to talk about, so maybe at some point we'll do a second part on this one. Do you think, just to round up this one, do you think that, how do you envisage like the future of your romantic relationships? Do you think that...
I think I'd like to have children.
You think you get married, or...?
Marriage, I said, obviously, I want to get more in touch with my religion, definitely.
Yeah.
So I want to read up a lot more on, God's views, at least, on marriage.
Why do you want to do that? Why do you want to read up on the religion more?
Because the Holy Book, because I'm a Christian, is so large. There's so many chapters, verses. There's so much that I won't know. There's a lot of stuff that I'd have to translate, outside the Bible anyway, because I wouldn't understand it. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot. I don't want to go off topic, into religion, but I would like to think married with kids in the future, in the long
I would
future.
say the same. I think that, and I don't know how cool it is to say this as a guy, or I don't know how cool it is to say this as a guy of our age, but I guess having kids and getting married is like my biggest aspiration. I think because family's been such a big part of my life up to this point. Like, my parents are married and they've always been married, and like my brothers are obviously a big part of my life, and I think definitely getting married and having kids is such a big part of what I want in the future. Maybe even more so than a good job. I think family's got to always come first for me.
Yeah.
But we'll see. See what happens. I guess that kind of nicely dovetails into next week's podcast as well, which will be about goals and our goals for the next year. Now, I don't think we'll be married with kids by this time next year, but...
Hey, you never know.
You never know.
No,
but...
about 9 days to do it.
Yeah. But...
But...
I don't know why that made me laugh. But yeah, I think that's kind of wraps up this podcast, unless you've got anything else to say. I think it's slightly shorter than our usual, but yeah.
Can't leave without saying, as usual, thank you very much for listening.
Yes.
And
have a wonderful Christmas.
Yes, absolutely. If you've got to this point, we wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Well, we'll be back before the New Year. We've got one on New Year's Eve. But...
Well, we'll be wishing you a Happy New Year on the Goals podcast.
Yeah. But have a wonderful Christmas if you listen to this before Christmas. If you listen to after Christmas, I hope you had a great Christmas. And yes, we'll see you next week, which for once I have an actual plan for next week, which is goals. We'll be having a kind of roundup of the things we've achieved this year and things that we hope to achieve next year. So join us for that. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.